Welcome again to Frontline Tactic. This is Segef. I've decided to do another video of Neverwinter with my Guardian fighter, Gorotar Toughhide. Yeah, and I decided I got another instance mission of crawling into what I thought were going to be sewers, but apparently it's a giant crack in the wall. So I'll be kind of doing some rambling while I do this mission. I already said that I didn't really want to do too much of playthrough, so I'm not going to be commenting too much on the actual gameplay, but kind of my hopes and my anticipations of the game. I know I mentioned earlier about potential multiple classes. I would like to see Monk, Bard, Paladin, and Ranger introduced into the game. And I understand also in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, there are a lot of prestige classes that are very interesting. And I would almost hope that in the future, another thought that I had was that one of the major dynamic things of D&D is the directions that you can take. And so for the most part, this game is us playing as heroes. And I know there's campaigns out there where they're designed actually where you play the anti-hero or the villain. And so it'd be interesting to see them create an offshoot or an expansion eventually of where you play as a villain trying to, say, overthrow the city or come up in the ranks. You know, start out as a shady dervish character, and then work your way up to being like a Thieves Guild lord. But I mean, that's one possibility. I mean, that's really in depth for possibly what this game is actually set up, because it seems pretty simple and linear of what they want to do, but still brings it to mind that I would like to see multiple classes. And this will bring in, like, what I was saying above mentioned, where the different... Ooh, what do we got here? All sorts of good stuff. You know, above mentioned about the different classes and the prestige classes. I mean, you have the Blackguard, which is almost like a reverse paladin. And so that would be really interesting, and I think would also add a neat aspect to the PvP, which I haven't PvP'd yet in this game, but it just seems interesting to have the same faction working against each other. Why not have it where you set out to, you know, have more of a dynamic thing? But then again, I mean, this is a free-to-play game, and, you know, it's going to be X amount of simplicity to it. And I may be hoping way too much because I'm a giant D&D nerd. But, you know, nonetheless, I'm still hoping for something a little bit more dynamic than just, you know, this is what you get. A nice little icon for Devoted Cleric. But, like what I was saying earlier with the Bard, it would be really interesting to see a Bard that has very little influence in the battlefield outside of really good buff mitigations. Like, the person just there to buff, micromanage the scenario in the battlefield. Like I made a reference to EverQuest 1. EverQuest 1 was amazing for that. Where the characters were... Sorry about that. I was trying to focus on combat. Where if you if you're really good at, back in the day it was called twisting, where you had to get your songs to kind of blend together and you had to keep them rotated, otherwise all the spells and the buffs would fall off the person. And so it would be really interesting to see what they could do with that. Because in the D&D world, bards are very... Oh, dude got a nice new shiny shield. Let's see if we can get it in the light. Oh, it looks nice. Where they have very utility-based skills and spells, it would be really neat to see a more dynamic character that's not focused on any damage dealing or combat, but just buffing and mitigating. And so if you have a really good one of these characters, it makes the game smoother. And so one can argue where you have a 5-man team, instead of having, you know, your standard build of tank, 3 DPS, or, you know, 3 or 4 DPS and a healer, that you would have a tank, 2 DPS, a, you know, support role, and then you have your healer, 2 or 3, you know, DPS, and then a support role. And that's where I think a druid would also come in handy. And I would like to see a druid be in that scope of just slowing enemies, tying them up. It's been a long time since I've seen a game where distractions and crowd control has been a heavy player in doing stuff. I mean, back in the day, World of Warcraft really stepped it up with crowd control from previous MMOs that I've played in, and I have a decent pedigree in MMOs to brag about. I guess that's kind of a egotistical word to say. I was gonna say boast, but that doesn't do much better. But you guys get my point. Is I've been around the MMO block a few times, and CC has kind of gone to the wayside, or it's done very sloppily. And I would like to see it create like a comeback. As well as, you know, a druid is kind of jack of all trades in the D&D world, same as it was in the EverQuest world. As well as the paladin. I mean, the paladin would be really interesting to see how they would do this in this. If like it would make it like some kind of weird assistant tank or DPS, it'd be interesting to see how they would do it. So that's another thing that I would like to see, as well as the ranger. I mean, the ranger would be very dynamic, because the main thing in other MMOs that they've had ranger-esque characters, it's where it's exclusively ranged attack. While in the D&D world, ranger a lot of times is dual wield or ranged attack. But with that in thought, I mean, I'm basing off a lot of what I know off of 3.0 and 3.5. That's where I'm heaviest in my D&D play. While, well, with some 2.0 and such. While this game, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's loosely based off of the 4.0 or 4. Whatever. I mean, I never got into 4. Dungeons and Dragons. So it would be interesting to see, you know, what kind of ranger, if there's even a ranger in the 4.0 edition, if this is what it's based off of. So again, I just would like to see more dynamic classes, but again, like I said, this has been it's open beta. It's, you know, still hashing things out. They still have a lot of pay stuff. I noticed the drow race is up for buy. I'm assuming that's what the coming soon means. So possibly after so many people buy the drow, or so many how much time the game has gone by, that the drow race will become public, which would be nice, because I'm a huge drow fan. The last major D&D campaign I played a drow monk that was just beast, and so it's kind of a fun combination to play. And that's another thing that would be interesting, is that Dungeons & Dragons has minuses in it, and I haven't seen any minuses in this game. not so much minuses as just like alternatives. Like you can either have this or you can have this. I think that's one of the fun things about Dungeons and Dragons, that you have to balance your character and figure out how you want to do things. So it's, you know, stuff in the future I would like to see. DDO I thought was amazing for that there was kind of that trade-off. I understand this game is almost competing with itself, while DDO is more of the 3.0, 3.5 edition rules, and then this, like I said again, seems more like the 4.0 edition. More fast-paced and I don't want to say cookie cutter, but less options. And I think that's one of the things I was turned away from back for the tabletop of 4.0, was that it seemed like there was just less options for me to pick. And this reminds me of the 4.0 that I was kind of understanding. But now I feel like I'm kind of rambling. What's another thing I would like to see? Oh, to me, it doesn't seem like there's a pet class yet in the game. And I think a necromancer. Well, I don't know if you can really fit a necromancer into this because of the story arc of being, you know, the countryside being overrun by a powerful lich person. But that would be something that would be really interested with my idea of making a patch eventually where you have the villains of the land. And so you can have a specialty class like the Red Wizards, or, like I said, the Blackguard, and, was it the Manhunter? Or it was, Mortal Bane. Sorry, Mortal Bane. That's what I'm thinking of. The Mortal Bane class, prestige class. I think those would be really cool, as well as would add a different dynamic to the PvP battles. It would make the PvP battles make more sense than you just battling someone that's, you know, essentially on the same side. Because I feel like everyone's... I understand that this is supposed to be like a dynamic, heroic thing, but at the same time, I think they kind of lost the D&D feel where you can have a big gray area. And this game feels kind of Care Bearish in the form that everyone's on the good side. Everyone's a good guy. You don't even get to pick your alignment or anything like that. And I don't even know if this game really has, you know, it asks you to pick your deity. I don't even know if that's going to play effect now or ever in the game. So that would be really interesting to see as well, that they would implement the deity system to do something. But like I said, I'm only like level 5. I've not seen it really play a factor in other than the role play aspect of it. So yeah, so that's kind of my quicker little rant and hopes and I don't know about expectations, because that makes it sound like I expect this game to do X or do something, but yeah, things I would like to see, and I hope that they're not like too grandiose or jerky. But yeah, I hope it makes sense. I think I'm gonna hang on to some of this stuff. Actually, I think I'm gonna hang on to it because I don't even know if I can like break this stuff down for materials to trade skill with. And that's I'm gonna wait a little bit before I do that. Well-informed helper. What does this guy want? It's asking me to buy things, or this is like the foundry thing where you get to make your levels. That's something I'm kind of interested in, the foundry. That was kind of like a patch they did back in the day with City of Heroes, where you can make your own levels in the player-made content. And so it was really neat, and so certain players would flesh out more fandom or be able to create levels for their guilds or their friends that would perpetuate, say, their fandom or their player-made fiction. And so it would just create more in-depthness and immersion for your character. If you were, you absolutely loved your character, you put time and effort into your toon. So the Foundry I'm actually really excited for, and I think I'm going to be looking forward to that and maybe do some of it myself. So we'll have to see. Like I said, I'm just kind of rambling. I didn't want to talk too much other than, to kind of get some of these thoughts out that I kind of had after I did the first video. So, yeah, if you guys end up wanting to comment or have any issues or counter arguments or agree with what I say, let me know. If you have any other ideas or classes that you think would be in this game, as well as races, because you just kind of like the basic fantasy or Dungeons and Dragons setup that you normally have. I'm finding a were-rat. Seems pretty hardcore. Ugh, got my butt knocked around. But I do like how, like 3.0 that they did. There was no race restrictions for what classes can be what classes. But I would like to see more races and things like that. But again, I completely understand that this is a free-to-play game, so it's going to take time for that stuff, as well as that's going to be premium tender in order for them to make their money, because this is free-to-play. So I completely understand that. I don't know how much it costs to buy characters. Like I said earlier, I would be interested in playing Drow, just because I kind of have some Drow love. But it would add more dynamic and flesh out the world more if, say, they added the enemy faction where you can play as a full-blooded orc or half ogre or kobold or hobgoblin or or even a goblin, and so flesh out the world a bit more, because Faerun and the Forgotten Realms is a very in-depth, long-living franchise, and that I hope they do some really good justice to. Well, I think I should probably end it off here before I ramble too much and bore you guys to death. So, this is Segif with Frontline Tactics, sorry, not to be confused. You guys have a good night. Bye.